The wind howled like an ancient spirit lost in the dunes, sweeping across the scorched landscape of the Al-Karim Desert. Sand whispered against canvas as Professor Idris Noman sat cross-legged inside his weather-worn tent, staring down at a crumbling scroll, his final gift. The parchment had been hidden in the hollow spine of a family heirloom, an old Quran passed down for generations. But the map inside was no holy text. It spoke of a city beneath the sand, older than the pharaohs, spoken of only in madman's rants and discarded myth. He traced the red ink across the scroll, pausing at the phrase written in dead script, "Veins of the dead." Outside, the desert moaned. Inside, Idris smiled. 2 days later, they stood at the edge of a sunken ruin half buried by centuries. Layla al-Rashid, a skeptical but brilliant field archaeologist, surveyed the site with arms folded and jaw tight. "You dragged us here on. A map hidden in a family relic?" she asked, brushing a copper braid behind her ear. Idris didn't answer immediately. Instead, he knelt beside the half-buried stone floor and gently cleared away sand, revealing a circular seal, a strange symbol burned deep into the center. "It's not just a map," Idris whispered. "It's a warning." Layla scoffed but motioned for the workers to bring tools. Behind them, Yusuf watched silently. The young assistant carried a presence that unnerved even seasoned diggers. His quietness, his intensity, and the way he seemed to always be one step ahead of them. They set to work. Hours passed. The sun blistered above. By twilight, the circular seal had been fully revealed, a stone disk over 3 meters wide, covered in faded glyphs. The outer ring depicted figures without faces, kneeling, arms raised to a towering shadow. The center held a symbol Layla had never seen before, an inverted eye surrounded by 6 sharp spokes. "It's not Egyptian," she muttered, "or Sumerian, or anything else." "No," Idris said, "it's older." With a heavy groan and the help of levers, the seal was lifted. A gust of cold, damp air whooshed upward from the hole beneath, unnaturally cold for a desert. Several workers backed away instinctively. The hole was a staircase, narrow and hewn into the bedrock, spiraling downward into utter blackness. Yusuf leaned forward, whispering, "It breathes." They stared at him. "What did you say?" "Leela asked." He blinked. "I didn't say anything." Later that night, around the campfire, tensions bubbled. "I don't like this," one of the workers muttered in Arabic. "That place, it's cursed. I felt something." Layla took a long breath. "It's just old stone and trapped air. If there's a tomb down there, it could be the find of the century." Another worker leaned forward. "The symbol on the seal, my grandmother told stories about it. She said it belonged to those who remember the void, people who could forget who they were, even their own names, until only the darkness remained." Idris watched the flames flicker. "Then I suggest we remember who we are and why we came." By morning, the expedition descended. The stone stairs led them deep underground, walls sweating with condensation, air thick with silence. Every step echoed like thunder. The torches they carried flickered wildly, though no wind stirred. Layla stopped. "Do you hear that?" They paused. Somewhere far below, a low hum vibrated the stones like a deep, sustained note sung by a massive throat. At the base of the staircase lay a long corridor, carved with what looked like ancient murals figures, bowing, others screaming, one with a bleeding mouth and eyes sewn shut. On either side of the passage, massive stone tombs lined the walls, carved with faceless humanoid shapes. Yusuf approached one. The sarcophagus was unsealed, its stone lid cracked down the center. He traced a line of burned black residue running from the tomb to the wall. "This was opened," he whispered. From the inside, Layla turned sharply. That's not possible. Idris stepped forward, inspecting the others. Each tomb was intricately carved, more ornate than any Egyptian burial he had ever studied. But none bore names, dates, or identities. No hieroglyphs, he muttered. It's like they wanted to bury more than the body, like they wanted to erase the person. Behind them, the staircase vanished in darkness as their torchlight flickered. Faint voice murmured from the corridor ahead. They froze. Yusuf turned his head slowly. Did someone just say something? Idris frowned. No one spoke. The voice returned, barely a whisper. Not words, but a sound. Mourning, deeper in. They found the first chamber. It was a domed room, circular, with 6 more tombs evenly spaced against the walls. In the center was a raised platform. Upon it lay an obsidian mirror. Unlike any material they'd seen, it was perfectly smooth, but did not reflect. Layla approached and held her torch over it. No reflection. Only darkness. It's absorbing. The light, she said. IDR. Eyes knelt beside the platform. This was a ritual site. He produced the dagger they'd found earlier. On closer inspection, it bore tiny grooves down the center. A channel for blood. Layla looked uneasy. Human sacrifice? Idris nodded. To feed something, or keep it sleeping. Suddenly, Yusuf staggered back from a tomb, clutching his head. I heard it again, he gasped. A voice inside me. He spoke 3 words in a language none of them recognized. The air shifted. The torchlight dimmed, almost extinguished. From deeper down the corridor. A wind swept toward them against gravity. They turned. The corridor beyond the chamber had opened itself. A groan echoed, like stone grinding bone. Then came the first scream. One of the workers vanished, pulled into the darkness mid-step. No struggle, no blood, just gone. Panic erupted. Idris shouted, back to the stairs. But the way they came was gone. The corridor had shifted. The tomb had moved. They regrouped, breathless, trapped in the mirror chamber. What is this place? Layla demanded. It's alive. It's watching us. Idris, pale and shaken, looked to Yusuf. You said the place breathes. Maybe it does. Yusuf stood slowly, eyes distant. It's not a tomb, it's a gate. He pointed to the wall behind the platform. The mural depicted a spiraling staircase downward, where figures lost their faces, then their shapes, then became part of the wall itself. Idris translated the inscription. Within lies truth, and the undoing of those who seek it. As the last of their torches burned low, the floor beneath them vibrated. Another part of the wall crumbled, revealing a second descending spiral, even narrower and darker. And the last, they had a choice. Wait in a living tomb for death, or go deeper. The spiral descent felt like an eternity. The stairs tightened as the walls closed in, forcing them to duck their heads, crawl at times, and hold their breath when the air grew too thick to bear. The deeper they went, the older everything felt older. Then time, perhaps. Stone turned darker, slicker. The smell changed, no longer dust and mildew, but something sour, something decaying, like a grave opened too soon. Layla was the first to speak after an hour of silence. If we go any deeper, we'll start hearing the bones breathe. No one laughed. They reached a landing, a circular antechamber with 3 branching tunnels. Unlike the rooms above, this one was hewn roughly, as though scratched out by desperate hands. The walls bore no art, only grooves and claw-like gouges, as if someone or something had tried to climb out, or tried to keep others from coming in. What the hell is this place? She muttered. Yusuf stepped forward. It's not the underworld. It's beneath even that. He didn't sound like himself. Idris examined the tunnels. They converge, he said, pointing to faint footprints in the dust. All three lead to the same place. We pick one. They chose the rightmost path, guided by instinct or fate. After an hour, they entered a vast hall, eerily quiet, impossibly large, and bathed in the cold blue glow of crystal veins that pulsed faintly in the ceiling, like veins in translucent skin. The walls were lined with towering sarcophagi, unmarked, untouched by time. The group stood stunned. "They're not Egyptian," Layla whispered, "or human." Each sarcophagus had a different shape. Some were long and thin, others short and wide. A few were twisted, curved, organic, like the body within had reshaped the stone to fit its own form. One lid lay cracked open, a black smear trailing across the floor. "Let's not follow it," Layla said sharply. Pulling Yusuf back. Ice approached a wall that bore a carving, a vast tree with roots burrowing downward, devouring figures who screamed in silence. At the bottom was a blank circle, smooth, like polished bone. Under it, a single line of glyphs. They gave up names to keep it buried. The silence shattered. A groan, like breath echoing through centuries, rolled through the hall. The crystals dimmed. Something moved among the tombs, too fast to see, but heavy enough to stir the dust. They backed against the wall, torches trembling, and then a voice, right behind them. "Remember." They turned. "Nothing. Don't speak," Idris hissed. "It listens." Too late. A gust of wind whipped through the corridor. A second worker, Hani, was lifted from the ground and folded backward. His scream cut short as his body slammed against a tomb and fell limp. Gone. Layla grabbed Idris. "We need to go. Now." But Yusuf had already moved toward the center of the hall, his eyes blank, his mouth murmuring in that impossible language. "Yusuf!" Idris shouted. He turned slowly. "It's calling," he said softly. "I hear my name, but it's not mine anymore." They dragged him away, back through the corridor, back into the antechamber, only to find the other two tunnels had collapsed behind them. "We're being herded," Layla whispered. "Something is guiding us." And it led them forward. Deeper. At the end of the path, they emerged into another chamber, but this one was alive with whispers. Not sound, but thoughts pressing into their skulls. He came with eyes open. "She will break. One of them has already forgotten." The room was circular, domed, with walls made entirely of reflective black stone, mirrors. But as they looked into them, they didn't see themselves. They saw versions of themselves. Yusuf saw himself buried alive, clawing at a stone lid. Layla saw herself speaking in a foreign tongue, kneeling before the altar. Idris saw himself older, grayer, sitting where his father once sat, alone, holding the same scroll. "The mirrors are showing us what we fear," he said, "or what we're becoming." Layla stepped back. Her mirror image stayed still, then grinned. "That's not a reflection," she hissed. "That's something else." A crack rang out as one of the mirrors shattered behind them. A creature stepped through, tall, draped in black mist, its face shifting like flowing ink. Its mouth opened, and it spoke Idris's full name. In his father's voice. They ran through another tunnel, barely escaping the collapsing ceiling. The mirrors groaned as if crying. The creature didn't follow, but it watched. They could feel its gaze burning the backs of their skulls. They reached another spiral. Down again. This new spiral was narrower, older raw stone, and jagged edges. And it descended at a sharper angle. Yusuf collapsed halfway. His body trembled. Eyes rolled back. Layla cradled him. "Yusuf, stay with me." He spoke again in that voice that wasn't his. "She waits in the core, the tomb that eats names. My blood opens it. I remember now." "Remember what?" Idris asked. Yusuf looked up, eyes gleaming. "My great-grandfather was one of them, the last guardian. He sealed it. And I'm the key." At the bottom, they found a mural. Unlike the rest, it depicted the earth split in half, a black tendril stretching from its core, feeding on cities and souls. Around it, 6 robed figures with blank faces, holding daggers, chanting in unison. A phrase repeated 3 times. To remember is to die. To forget is to serve. To open is to become. A door stood before them sealed by blood. Stone and silence. 6 circles. 6 indentations. The gate to the final chamber. Yusuf stepped forward. Don't, Layla said. I have to. He sliced his palm and placed it on the central seal. The door trembled. Stone groaned, and slowly it began to open. The gate opened with a sound like the earth, groaning through clenched teeth. The thick stone parted inch by inch, revealing a descending corridor carved into impossibly smooth black rock. No chisel marks, no cracks, no dust. It looked grown. Not built. The air changed. Not just colder, but heavy, like it carried weight, memory, grief. Yusuf's footsteps were calm, steady, leading the way. He didn't speak. Behind him, Layla and Idris followed cautiously, their torches flickering despite the still air. The corridor sloped downward for what felt like miles, until they stepped into a cavern that swallowed light. Then the torches blinked, and the world changed. They were inside a vast cylindrical chamber, a spiral staircase wrapping around its walls like the ribcage of some ancient beast. The steps were broken in places, worn thin in others, with no handrails, only a steep drop into the black below. The center was a gaping void, endless and pulsing with a heartbeat that wasn't sound, but sensation, a rhythm felt in the bones. At intervals along the walls were dark arched alcoves, dozens of them, perhaps hundreds leading into unknown chambers. Where are we? Layla whispered. IDR. Eyes looked pale. This isn't architecture. It's a descent into something that was never meant to be mapped. They began down the spiral. Each level of the descent changed something. The first level? Time. Their watches stopped. Layla's flashlight flickered, then died completely. The torches still burned, but they no longer cast shadows. Idris's journal pages aged in his hands, browned, curled. They passed a wall where someone had scratched a message in ancient Arabic. I was born here, but I came yesterday. The second level. Sound. Their own voices sounded foreign higher, or lower than they should be, spoken a half-second before their mouths moved. Once, Idris shouted Yusuf's name and heard his father's voice respond. The third level. Identity. Mirrors embedded in the wall showed versions of themselves older, younger, dying, laughing madly, faces melting into strangers. In one, Layla saw herself as a priestess in ancient robes, holding a black dagger, whispering prayers to a mass of shifting shadow. Idris stared into one and saw a reflection he did not recognize. An old man with hollow eyes and a symbol carved into his forehead. I've been here before, he whispered. Yusuf said nothing. His skin was paler. His eyes reflected no light. On the fourth level, they entered a room. A stone altar stood in the center, surrounded by concentric rings of skeletal remains. Each body had the same expression, mouths open in agony, hands clutching their faces. Eye sockets hollowed out. Layla approached one. They clawed their own eyes out. Idris picked up a stone tablet lying on the altar, carved in blood-red pigment. The cost of truth is self. Suddenly, one of the skeletons moved, a jaw clicking open. A voice emerged, not sound, but inside their minds. Who remembers you when you are gone? What remains if even you forget your name? Then silence. They pressed on. The spiral grew tighter. The stone beneath their feet turned glass-like, reflecting faint shapes moving below shadows that didn't match their steps. They passed 6 more arched doorways. One was open. Inside was a circular room, identical to the one they'd seen earlier. In the center, a being knelt, head bowed, body wrapped in black tendrils. It didn't move. Eyes peered closer. The being lifted its head, slowly revealing his own face, aged, twisted. "I am the you who stayed," it said. Idri screamed and staggered back, but the creature only smiled. Deeper still. At the 7th level. Layla collapsed. Her lips moved, but her voice was not her own. "The gate knows. The gate grows." Her fingers traced symbols into the dust symbols she had never seen, but somehow remembered. She muttered a name one Idris recognized. Zartun? The name from the scroll. The name his father swore to forget. Yusuf knelt beside her. She remembers. She's almost through. Idris grabbed his torch and held it up to Yusuf's face. "What are you now?" Yusuf blinked. "I am the gatekeeper. I was born for this." Finally, they reached the lowest level. The stone ended. Before them stood a massive door of bone, woven together with sinew and sealed with 6 spinning wheels, each engraved with an ancient glyph. I stepped forward, recognizing them. "One is for memory," he said. "One for name, one for time, one for blood, one for self, and one—" He looked at the final wheel. It was blank, no symbol. Yusuf placed a hand on it. "That one is for the forgotten." He spun the wheels. Each turned with a sound like screaming wind. The door began to open. Inside was a perfectly spherical chamber, smooth as glass, humming with low energy. No edges, no corners. At its center was a black orb, suspended in the air, tendrils of light flickering from it like feelers, searching for minds to touch. The 3 stepped inside. The orb pulsed, and then they each heard it their own voice, speaking to them alone. "Layla, you have always served, even before you were born. Idris, knowledge is the chain. You forged it yourself. Yusuf, come home, child. Become." Layla raised her torch, then gasped. Her hands were gone. Not physically. She couldn't remember she had them. She looked down and saw fingers, but her brain didn't register them. Like they weren't hers. Idris looked at Yusuf and saw no face, not masked, not erased, just forgotten. He stepped back. "No, this is not knowledge. This is consumption." But it was too late. The orb reached out, light flicking through the room, brushing against their memories, like fingers turning pages in a book. Layla screamed. Not from pain, but because she forgot why she was screaming. Yusuf collapsed to his knees, whispering, "I am no one. I am ready." Idris made a choice. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the obsidian mirror they'd found earlier. He held it up to the orb. The orb stopped pulsing. The tendrils recoiled. The mirror, once empty, now glowed, reflecting the orb's core. And in that reflection, something screamed. The orb cracked. Light burst across the chamber. Yusuf screamed as the light hit him, his body twisting, his name ripped from his mouth. The orb imploded, collapsing into itself, vanishing in a flash of searing white. Silence. Then stone groaned above. The chamber began to collapse. Layla, gasping, eyes wide with returning memory, grabbed Idris. "We have to go." "Now?" He hesitated, looking at Yusuf, who now lay still, face blank, eyes open but empty. "I'm sorry," Idris whispered. Together, he and Layla fled up the collapsing spiral, the chamber behind them erasing itself. The stairs they had climbed vanished beneath their feet, rebuilt by unseen forces. The tomb was sealing again. They reached the surface just before dawn. The sun pierced the sand as if the world had been scrubbed clean. No sign of the staircase, no gate, no ruins. Nothing. Just wind and desert. Epilogue. Weeks later, Idris sat at his desk in Cairo. He opened his journal and found pages missing, not torn, just blank. He turned to the obsidian mirror sitting beside his lamp. Layla had given it to him. She refused to keep it. Now, in the black surface, he saw a flicker, a shape.yusuf. Still kneeling, still watching, and behind him, the orb pulsing, waiting. Our Idris Maran had returned to the world of light, but light, it seemed, had forgotten him. He moved through the university like a ghost. Students barely noticed him. His lectures, once riveting, now droned in monotone. His notes, once meticulously kept, were now scattered with blank pages and trembling handwriting. Something had been taken, and something had followed. At night, he heard whispers in the corners of his room, sometimes in Yusuf's voice, sometimes in his father's, and sometimes in a voice that had no language, just vibration and hunger. He kept the obsidian mirror under lock and key, but it still called to him. Layla, meanwhile, had disappeared. She left Cairo suddenly. No calls, no goodbyes. The only thing she left behind was a small box delivered by hand to Idris's apartment. Inside, a folded note and an artifact, a golden scarab engraved with the same 6 glyphs as the bone door they'd found underground. Her message was brief. I saw what's coming. I must go to where it ends. Don't follow me if I fail. It will come through. The spiral returns 3 days later. Idris stood in the museum basement, staring at a sealed vault door that hadn't existed the week before. No one else saw it, not the guards, not the staff, but it was there. And it breathed. He brought the obsidian mirror. The door opened. Behind. It was a perfect copy of the underground spiral they'd descended months ago. But now, it was inverted, ascending instead of descending. He walked. Each step upward erased something behind him. His watch stopped. His phone flickered. Names fell from his memory like leaves from dying trees. The final flight of stairs led to a single chamber, a mirror of the original, except suspended upside down. And in the center floated the orb, still alive, still hungry, still waiting. Yusuf stood beside it. No longer human. A mask covered his face, blank, bone-white, smooth. His eyes were voids. His voice echoed from beneath the mask like it traveled through centuries. You returned. The gate remembers. Idris raised the scarab in defiance. I know what this is now. I know what you've become. The mask tilted. You? Still think in binaries. Life or death. Memory or forgetfulness. We are beyond that. We are pattern without origin. Form without self. The gate opens. The orb pulsed. And suddenly, the entire room cracked, not physically, but conceptually. Reality splintered like glass. Time reversed, then froze, then ran forward in silence. Idris saw versions of himself, hundreds, maybe thousands, all drawn here, all choosing differently. Some worshipped the orb, some destroyed it, some became it. He saw Layla's body floating in a chamber of black water, eyes open, mouth speaking constant, perfect silence. She had become the anchor. Final seal. Yusuf stepped closer, mask gleaming. She holds the door shut, but her mind breaks more each second. Soon, she will forget herself completely. And when that happens, he touched the orb. The gate will open, not into your world, but into all of them. Idris fell to his knees. He remembered now his father's warnings. The stories buried in scrolls and stone. This wasn't a tomb. This was a prison, and they had broken it open. The final choice, the orb, offered him a vision, power, eternal knowledge. Escape from time. He would not die. He would become a name spoken. In dreams, he would join the architects of the abyss. Idris had already made his choice. He reached into his coat, pulled out the scarab, and spoke the name etched in blood. Centuries ago, Zartun. I bind you. The orb screamed not a sound, but a pressure, like gravity tearing sideways. The chamber began to collapse. Yusuf lunged, but Idris struck the orb with the scarab. Light exploded outward in violent spirals. The orb cracked. Again, inside it Layla's face. She looked at him, whispered, "Don't forget me." Then everything went white. Cairo. 1 year later, the spiral is gone. The museum vault is sealed. The hallway where it once stood, now a janitor's closet. No one remembers. Yusuf. No one remembers Layla, except Idris. He sits in the archives most days, staring at an obsidian mirror that now reflects nothing, not even his own face. He keeps a notebook. Every morning. He writes 2 things. My name is Idris Maran. She was real. And every night. He forgets. Final scene. Somewhere beneath the shifting sands of the Valley of the Kings, far beyond reach of any map or satellite. A gate pulses. Waiting. A whisper echoes in 1,000 minds. What you forget does not die. It waits, and when you remember, it returns.